Episode 9. Last time we made API calls but glossed over the parameters. Today, we turn the knobs: temperature, output length, and Gemma's thinking mode. 3 things to understand. Temperature, which controls how varied or focused the output is. NumPredict, which caps how long the response can run. And Gemma's thinking mode, the reasoning it shows before answering. And a real trap I hit on my own machine. I asked for a creative name and got an empty response. Nothing. The cause was one parameter set too low. We'll see exactly why. We'll compare temperatures side by side on real output, hit the NumPredict ceiling, and fix it. And see how Gemma's thinking shows up differently depending on the endpoint. Let's start with what these knobs actually do. Then go to the terminal and watch them change real output, including that empty response trap. Recap: temperature shapes variety, NumPredict caps length, and thinking mode exposes reasoning. Next, we turn these knobs at the terminal. 3 controls shape what the model gives you. Let's take them one at a time, what each does and where each bites. Temperature controls how varied the output is. Low temperature makes the model focused and predictable. It picks the safe, likely words. High temperature lets it range wider, more creative, less predictable. It's tuning how adventurous the word choices get. Top P is a related knob. It limits the model's choices to the most likely words whose probabilities add up to P. Most people leave it near 0.9 and mainly adjust temperature. Good enough to know it's there. NumPredict sounds like answer length, but it's really a hard ceiling, the maximum number of tokens the model may produce before it's cut off. Hit the ceiling, and generation stops mid-output, whether it was finished or not. Here's the trap. Gemma 4 is verbose. It writes long, structured answers. Set the ceiling too low, and it gets cut off before the useful part even appears. You ask for a name and get an empty response. The fix: raise the ceiling. Last, thinking mode. Gemma reasons before answering. On the chat endpoint, that reasoning comes back in a separate thinking field, kept apart from the answer. On generate, it's blended into the output. Same behavior, shown 2 ways. Temperature tunes variety, NumPredict caps total tokens, and thinking mode surfaces reasoning, separately on chat, blended on generate. Let me show you the trap first. I ask for a creative tool name, but I set NumPredict to 50, a low ceiling. Run it, and look. The response field is empty. Done reason says length, it hit the ceiling. Gemma's a verbose model. 50 tokens wasn't even enough to reach the answer. This stumped me when I first hit it. Now the fix. Same prompt, but NumPredict at 800. Watch, and there it is. A full list of creative names, categorized. Done reason still says length. Even 800 wasn't quite enough to finish naturally, but now we've got a usable answer. The lesson: NumPredict is a ceiling, not a request. Set it generously. Now temperature. Same prompt, same 800 ceiling, but 2 different temperatures. First at 0.6, more focused, conservative phrasing. Now at 0.9, you can see it ranges a bit wider, more varied suggestions. Same model, same question. The temperature dial changes how adventurous it gets. Low for predictable, high for creative. Last, the thinking mode. On the chat endpoint, ask a question and look. The response has 2 fields, content with the answer, and a separate thinking field with the model's reasoning. Ollama keeps them apart. On the generate endpoint, that reasoning just blends into the output. Same model thinking out loud, exposed differently depending on which endpoint you call. That's the control panel. Temperature for variety, NumPredict as a ceiling, and Gemma's thinking mode. 3 knobs that decide what you actually get back. We covered it. Temperature. focused versus varied, num predict as a hard ceiling, and the empty response trap when it's too low. And Gemma's thinking, separate on chat, blended on generate. Your quick reference. Temperature, low focused, high varied, top P, leave near 0.9. Num predict is a ceiling, set it generously or get cut off. And thinking shows as its own field on the chat endpoint. We can run a model, size it, call it, and control it. Next, we start making it genuinely useful, moving toward real applications built on this foundation. Temperature, the ceiling, thinking mode. That's episode 9. Subscribe to follow the series. We keep building on this, moving toward real applications running entirely on local hardware. Thanks for watching. Recap: 3 knobs: temperature, num predict, and thinking mode. Master them, and you control what the model actually returns.